Hello ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another Batman 66 episode review. Today we're reviewing the part 2 in the final episode of Season 1 and the final Penguin appearance of Season 1, and that is called Batman Makes the Scene. So without further ado, let's get into the video. No point wasting. We begin with a recap. So far, the Penguin is up to a nefarious plot that involves the brainwashed Alfred in order to find the location of the multi-millionaire's dinner in order to steal all the money that is intended to go to charity. Batman and Robin are on his trail, but they are now knocked out and tied up in a vacuum tank. And with the air being sucked out of the tank, they will essentially die from lack of oxygen, which is a pretty dumb way to go. But how are they going to get out of it? Well, we have to do the opening credits, and then we pick up where we left off. And honestly, it seems the Penguins won. All the air's gone, the balloons are popped, and it seems that Batman and Robin have died due to lack of oxygen. With Penguins succeeding where the others have failed, they then make their escape. But first, they need to establish an alibi in order for them not to be connected with the crime. As soon as they escape, we then find that Batman is slowly waking up and telling Robin to wake up. We then cut to Police Commissioner Gordon's office, where Batman explains how he just untied himself and Robin and got out. But the chief points out something. They were locked in a vacuum tank, and since all the air was sucked out, what did you breathe? It turns out Batman had his own special gas that he used for him and Robin to inhale. But that's just something I like to contradict. If that's the case, then wouldn't the oxygen tank suck their oxygen out? But then again, there's this bad oxygen, so who knows? Maybe it doesn't on the molecular level as normal oxygen. Who knows? It's Batman 66. Have an open mind. Anyway, but realizing that the Penguin tried to kill them, it's clear that he's still after the multi-millionaire's dinner funds. And realize the Penguin ain't gonna give that up with that huge sum of money involved. Realizing that Bruce Wayne is the only one who knows the location of that, Gordon the next day runs into Bruce and asks him where the location is going to be held, and tells him everything about the Penguin possibly planning to steal it, and they plan to stop it immediately before it happens. Bruce, of course, knowing about this, and of course giving Gordon the suggestion to do it in the first place, tells him that it will be held at stately Wayne Manor. We then cut to Batman, Robin, and Alfred in the Batcave explaining that the whole thing was simply a trap. You see, the plan to leak through the underworld, that they plan to hold it at Wayne Manor, while they're actually going to be holding it at Gotham Harbor on a cruise ship. And with that, the police will be prepared to capture the Penguin, while Batman and Robin will be on there to make sure everything goes on without a hitch. But Batman and Robin don't know that Alfred is brainwashed, and because of that, he now knows everything and plans to tell it to Penguin. When Penguin calls him up the next day, thanks to a brainwashed Alfred, he tells them not just where the location is and the proposed trap, but he also tells who will be the essentially supermodel that will be, that they will be throwing the money to. Because you see, what they do is they bring out a cake, and then this supermodel who'll be representing her chosen charity will pop out of the cake, and they'll throw the money to her. And Penguin already has a mole in her crew who is essentially going to be part of this because she wants to win a beauty contest. Once everything's revealed, he then tells him to forget that any of this ever happened. And of course, Alfred does forget. Just as this is happening, the Penguin and his crew go to where the real supermodel was supposed to be, knock her out, and have the Penguin's female doll, Vanilla, I believe that's her name, take her place. And Batman is picking her up and takes her to the cruise ship. And everything seems to be going on without a hitch. She bursts out of the cake, everyone's throwing money, and next thing you know, she gets out one of Penguin's trick umbrellas and gasses everyone. Everyone in attendance, Batman and Robin, and Alfred, who realizes his mistake and realizes what's happened and everything he's done, but before he could do anything, he too gets knocked out. The Penguin and two of his henchmen, Octopus and Shark, quickly come out and start getting all the cash, and plan to go to the Penguin's hideout at the pier, knowing that that'll be the last place law enforcement would expect him to go. Just as he And the whole crew quickly make their way out with all the money. They make their way to the pier, where they meet another member of the crew, Swordfish, and Penguin starts, dividing the loot, making sure everyone gets a fair cut. But he plans to spend most of his money to escalate the cause of crime, to bribe and steal. But however, the female accomplice, Vanilla, isn't so happy about it, feeling guilty of essentially stealing money from a charity. But however, Batman and Robin pop out, realizing they've took a special pill which made them immune to Penguin's gas, and congratulating her that realizing she's learned her lesson, crime doesn't pay due to the guilt. But Penguin says that no way is he going to give up without a fight. And of course, we have the final bat fight of the season, with the Penguin and his crew battling Batman and Robin, who are getting defeated one by one, and Penguin, of course, knocked out into a net. Eventually, Batman tells Robin to call up the police, saying that they've caught the Penguin and his whole crew. We then end the episode at Wayne Manor, with Alfred, of course, mingling with the guests. And I love this scene when he is hanging out with these two very young, attractive models, and Aunt Harriet gets a little bit jealous here. I think it's clear that Aunt Harriet has a thing for Alfred. Then again, how could you hate Alfred? Eventually, Bruce and Dick reveal to Alfred that they knew he was brainwashed, and planned to trap, knowing that he could pass it on to pass it on to Penguin. And of course, just as this is happening, the Penguin's female accomplice, Vanilla, comes in, along with Gordon, who has essentially been granted, to come to this event due to the fact that she did realize her ways and help Batman just at the end with helping convict the rest of the Penguin and his crew. And he does tell her that with good behavior, she could be out in very little time and essentially go on to have a good life on the right side of the law. We then end the season with that happy note. For me, what really makes these episodes stand out is Alfred here, who really stands out and really ties the story, and I like how his character gets to do much more in this episode. And Harriet, the little screen time she has, for me, brightens up, and again, that scene with her looking at Alfred and the two models, it really shows that in many ways, that Harriet does have a thing for Alfred. The cops here don't really play much of a role really apprehending the Penguin. Again, or any supervillains, really, it's always to Batman and Robin to have to bring them in. However, I will admit, Chief O'Hara pointing out how Batman survived being sucked out of a vacuum tank, with no air, again, is a good question, and I'm surprised that he would pick that up. Well, Gordon just would have said, Batman's Batman, he could find a way out of anything, but Chief O'Hara needs to figure it more out. We get to see a lighter side of Batman and Bruce Wayne with the Penguin's female accomplice. And that scene where Dick is a bit nervous chatting up to a supermodel is all fun. Burgess Meredith, as the Penguin, continues to be fun and entertaining to watch. And performance-wise, there isn't really nothing wrong with the character in this two-part. But I will admit, the caper here does sound pretty bland. But then again, it does fit Penguin, stealing from higher society, and from Penguin, essentially how he dresses and fits in with that crowd does make sense for his type of caper. And the Penguin hiding out on the pier, him being very smart, and he plans to use this money to escalate his criminal career, does make sense for the Penguin. And his crew are pretty average, but the female accomplice, however. Now, nothing against the actress in question. Vanilla, she's beautiful and she plays the role how it's written. So, as a result, I kind of am more mad at how the character's written, to the point where, those Bond girls that are just eye-rolling and annoying to listen to or watch? That's how I feel with her. But I can't help that she doesn't help contribute to the plot, and she is fine, but I don't know. I really felt that redemption thing really shouldn't have happened, and it kind of came out of nowhere for me. Unlike others, where we had that in the show, for this, it comes out of nowhere. And there was really no way, of hinting it in the story. Anyway, it's a minor gripe, and you expect this type of thing in 66, and if you can accept it as part of the show, then you might get some enjoyment out of it. Batman makes the scene. For me, this ties up really nicely. However, there is some inconsistencies I will point out. One, how is the Penguin not shocked when he finds Batman is really alive? How at the end, when he's surprised to see Batman, he says, "But why we gassed you at the party?" There was no line or dialogue saying that how could he have survived the death trap. Other than that, it's pretty average. other than that, this episode is pretty Penguin trying to steal, but I do like the inclusion of Alfred, which really makes it. For me, these two-parters may not be as grand, but I will admit, it is a fun way to end this season with one of the series' most beloved villains. Season 1, okay, this is what I'm going to do at the end of each season, and that's do a recap of the said season. For me, Season 1 is truly the best, so far the best season of the show. For the majority, we got to really spend the majority of the season Batman battling against arguably 3 of the series' most iconic foes, the Riddler, the Joker, and the Penguin. But the series also went out of its way to introduce other villains that were known in the Batman comics. These included characters like the Catwoman, Falseface, Mr. Freeze, who was recreated specifically for the show, and the Mad Hatter, with only 3 out of these 4 villains who would return to Season 2, and 1 who would play a role in the movie, along with Riddler, Penguin, and the Joker. But the series also went out of its way to introduce some new villains to the series. Zelda the Great as a one-off villain and was fine for her role. King Tut and the Bookworm all were fun characters, but only King Tut would return for Season 2 and Season 3, with Bookworm sadly being left as one of the few villains to not make it past Season 1. Like I said, this episode, for me, Season 1 manages to have a campy feel, but it has all of a dark and serious tone, but sadly, that translation lost in Season 2. And when we get to Season 2, we get to see just how different the seasons were in comparison, but also how enjoyable they were. For me, Season 1 is truly the best season of the 3 seasons. I can enjoy the other 2 for what they are, but for many, Season 1 just had a sort of quality that the others didn't. And that was our episode, Batman Makes the Scene, and the recap of Season 1. Overall, really fun and entertaining episodes. Now, what do I plan to do next? Well, you see, after Season 1 wrapped up, the producers were given a much bigger budget to make a movie, which was released in theaters, in order to further expand the popularity of Batman 66. Then after that, the producers immediately went into Season 2. So what do I plan to do first? Well, I want to end by doing the movie first, and then the second season. For me, it just makes sense to do everything in order of everything 66 that was produced. And yes, that's what we're gonna do. So next time we'll be doing the Batman 66 movie. So tune in for then. Until next time, this has been the Steven Hour, and thank you for watching. So long for now.